Welcome to this channel. If this is your first time seeing my face, hi, my name is Gabby. If not, welcome back. It's so good to have you here. In my last video, I took you through the process of creating a sourdough starter and eventually baking a sourdough artisan bread loaf. And I showed it in this bread container that I use to keep it from going stale. And a few of you were excited about me possibly showing you how to make it, so I'm back to show you exactly how I made it. This was the first iteration that I made when I made that video. I've made a few since then, and I've tweaked a few things, made it to where it made more sense for me. So I'll take you through this exact one because I filmed this one that I made, but I'll also walk you through kind of how I made it different and how I've improved it a little bit. I'm super excited to show you all this. I know I got some comments saying that they were excited to see this little bento bag. It's super easy, really good for taking it on the go. If you have your sourdough bread that you want to take to a friend's house, this would be perfect. Or if you have a friend who makes sourdough, this would be a great gift for them. So let me pop over to another version of Gabby and she can show you how to make this.
Okay, now we are getting into the fun stuff. So off camera, I cut 2 strips of fabric that were 12 inches by 36 inches. That's what the pattern I used called for. I'll link that below and you can purchase it. It's got really good instructions. But I did cut 2 strips of fabric off camera. It was on camera, but the clips got deleted or lost in transit, not quite sure. But like I said, just 2 strips of rectangle. When you go to the store, you could just ask for a yard of fabric and make sure that the height is enough to have 2 12-inch rectangles, and that makes it a lot easier when you're going to cut this because it's right around the same size. Like I said, I've made a few of these, and I've found that this length or width, I would say, is just a bit too large for what I need personally. If you are baking larger loaves or boules, or you got a lot of things that you want to put in this bag, because it can be multi-purpose. It doesn't have to be for sourdough. I just use it for that and I think it's cute. But if you have a lot of things that you need to put in, definitely keep this length. It's a good length. I've just shortened it a couple inches and that's worked out fine for me. Also, later on when you see me connecting the sides, you'll see that it's a little bit short, and that's because the length is a little too long. So I've brought it down to about 33 and a half. And here I'm just pinning the fabric together, leaving about a 3-inch gap depending on how much space your hand needs to pull out the corners later on. But I left a little bit too big of a gap when I first did this. I left about 5 inches, and it was just too much. And when I was going to sew it all back together, it made it a little bit more difficult. So I would recommend around 3-inch hole that you can use to turn right side out. Again, just going along the sides, making sure everything's pinned up and even. The really good thing about this fabric is it is so neat and tidy. You can line up the edges really, really nicely, as well as the pattern. If you have a fabric that has kind of crazy pattern, it might be a little bit more difficult, but that was the one positive about working with this material. Now, the bad thing about working with this material is the fact that it shed like crazy. I tried to follow the instructions to a T just so I wouldn't mess anything up when I was originally making this. And so I used the material that was suggested. It looks nearly identical to the one that she has pictured on her Etsy listing. But this, you can kind of see it's fraying. This fabric just really, really wasn't good to work with. I think moving forward, making other iterations, I just kind of stayed clear of this fabric, if I'm honest. I couldn't tell you exactly the name of it. I got it at Hobby Lobby, but it's just that kind of linen tea towel material, and it's great when it's finished, I'm sure, but when the fabric is just raw, it just pills and peels and pills, and it is a nightmare to work with. I made 2 of these because I bought double the amount of fabric, and I made 2 of these, and they took some time off of my life, I feel like. So I would recommend cotton or linen, definitely not a flannel. You don't want your bread to get all sweaty. That wouldn't be good. That would eventually over time lead to mold, and you don't want to eat moldy bread, obviously. Okay, so back to the video. As you saw, I went around 3/4 of the way and I left that 4 to 5, maybe 6 inch, I can't really tell, gap, and I made sure that each corner was tucked, and I did about a 1/4 inch inseam here when I was sewing. That's just what I prefer. I don't really want a lot of space in my end result from the seam. I kind of want it to be tight, especially when I'm going to go the second time around to complete the seam. I just want it to look a little bit cleaner and have the edges be a little more clean. So here I am taking my hand and then just kind of going through each corner, poking them out, making sure that they look uniform, that one didn't get deformed some way, because I've had that happen before. It's just a matter of I turned too early and the corners looked funky. So I always try to make sure that all the corners look good before I do the second sew, because if not, the best thing is being able to pick out a seam and start again. That's my favorite thing about sewing. You mess up, it's okay. Just pick out the seam and start again. When I first started sewing, I thought it was the end of the world that I messed up, but knowing that I'm able to literally just erase it and start again has been honestly great. I'm showing you that I'm doing the initial, start, back up, start again, because in the last clip I did not. So to prove a point, I have made multiple clips of me doing that, so you know that I am able to do that, and I do know that that's important. If you're new to sewing, that was the hardest thing I had to remember, was starting, backing up, starting again. But if you think of it like a shoe, you tie your shoe, right? If you use one knot, there's an easier chance of it coming out over time. I mean, obviously you're good for 10 minutes, but if you're going throughout the day, it might come untied maybe 3 or 4 times. And if you're making something that you want to be sustainable and used, you want to make sure that you double knot it. So creating that, start, back up, start again, is almost like a double knot. And as you see here, I am just closing up that hole that I left open the last time, making sure that it lines up, it looks clean, nothing is poking out in weird ways, and that the fabric is actually getting caught when I'm going over it the second time. I've had a few times when I've been sewing, because I am newer, I'm not a pro, I haven't been doing this for years, I've been doing this for half of a year and I love it, but there's just some mistakes that I make, and that's okay. That's the journey of learning things. But I've had a few times where I've gone over and the fabric hasn't been lined up correctly, and so it just looked a little odd, and I wanted to make sure, especially since I was filming this, that it would look good and clean and nice. So I've made it all the way around, done the second round of sewing here, and this is going to be the final set that everyone sees. So we originally started with it inside out. I had the right sides that I want people to see against each other. I had them laying against each other, and I had the bad sides laying out, so that around left a hole, and then turned it inside out. So then this would be the final side that I have. Different angle, but showing you the next steps that we're going to take. This is the hardest part of making this bag, and that's saying a lot. This is the hardest part, just being able to understand what is being asked of you. So starting with that panel that we just sewed fully around, after we turned it inside out, we have it laying flat. We're going to lift up the bottom left corner to the top of the panel, and then we're going to take the top right corner and bring it down to the bottom of the panel. And then from there, you're going to have that shape with the corners facing up and down. And then from there, you're going to take that bottom right corner and just make a meet right in the corner. So again, I'm showing you that we're starting with the bottom left of the panel, bringing that up to meet the top of the panel. And then we're going to take the top right piece and bring it down to the bottom. And then from there, once we have that shape, we're going to take the bottom right corner that we just put down, and we're going to make it meet to that other end, so it makes this nice clean line. And then we are just going to pin, and then we're going to sew it, and then we're done. I told you, it's super simple. A really, really, really good gift to give those who just started making sourdough, or a good gift for yourself to encourage you to keep sewing, keep baking. The curse and the blessing of this fabric is that you can so easily see if I've aligned everything. And so that was the trickiest part. But again, if you have, pattern fabric, if you have plain fabric, you are totally fine. It's not going to be that big of a deal. But I really wanted to make sure that this aligned properly, because I was giving it to someone. And so I just wanted this to look good. But it is such an easy bag. It's super simple to make. you can make so many different iterations of it. So here I have 2 panels of fabric that are the same, right? Front and back look exactly the same. I wanted that look. That was the look that was offered in the pattern that I used. I just really wanted it to be nice and clean that I could leave on my counter. But you can make a reversible one. So you could get 1 panel of fabric that was 12 by 36 inches, or like I said, 12 by 34, 33 and a half, which is what I use now. And then you could grab another color, another fabric, another pattern that you like. So say I have this one on one side with the beautiful stems of leaves, and then I just want a complementing color, so I'll use like a sage green fabric. I can have one side be the pretty leaves, and then on the inside I can have the sage green, and it would make a really nice contrast, but I could also turn it inside out if one side got a little dirty. I just baked a jalapeno and cheddar loaf yesterday, and first of all, it is so good. I'll have to show you guys how I made it because it's so simple, but it turned out so good, and I've already given it to a friend and she loves it. So as I was saying, I just made that yesterday, and if you can imagine, cheese is a little messy, so the inside looks like it's definitely seen a jalapeno cheddar loaf, if you know what I'm saying. But it would be really nice to be able to flip that right side out and have, you know, a nice new fresh side to it. So that's just an option. Unfortunately, another clip that got taken from my camera was me sewing the corners. My sewing teacher recommended that I do this just because, one, it would give that like rounded edge that I was going for, and as you can see in these corners here. 2, it would just make it structurally sound. It was able to hold something, you know, that weighs 2 or 3 pounds. It just made it sturdier, and so she suggested it. Whatever she says, I take to heart. So I did that. If you look up how to do a miter corner, it's the same principle. Otherwise, you would have kind of like the tips of this bag sticking out. If that's something that you want, that's totally fine. I just wanted it to be sturdy. I wanted it to look clean, and I wanted it to look nice because, again, I was giving this away. But yeah, once you've done all that, you're done. You got a beautiful bag. You can give away as a gift. You can keep for yourself. I've made a few, as I've said, and I loved the way that they've come out. I've also thought about adding a ruffle. I don't think it serves any purpose other than looking really, really cute, but I've thought about adding ruffle along the V of the bag just to add a little, I don't know, something extra. But it has been super fun making these. I've enjoyed the process in it, but I'm so excited, and I'm so happy that people were excited about this because when I made it, I felt so accomplished, and I hope you do too. I'm really looking forward to the next video. I will be making discard recipes that I have been waiting to bake. So I will see you all in the next video. Thank you all so much for the interest and all of the love that I received in my last video. It's really meant a lot. So thank you all again, and I will see you guys next time.